Today we're talking about understanding the state of marketing in 2021. Business to business sales has changed. And are you changing with what's actually happening within the business to business space? And I think it's very important to understand that business to business is not the 29% of buyers want to talk to only 29% of buyers want to talk to a salesperson. And that's important to understand when we are kind of going through the information and saying, what is it that we're talking about to make sure that we're sharing the relevant information. 57% of our buying decisions are made before buyers even pick up the phone or when we speak to a supplier. So your decisions are made even before they even pick up the phone. 34% of salespeople admit that closing deals is even harder. And I think Sue spoke to that in the session earlier. So what are you doing differently that is able to make sure that you are getting the sales that you need to? Average B2B sales cycle is 6 months. So why are we doing the ROI that Natalie is talking about and only putting it into 1 month? Because that for me is the most challenging part as someone who's in sales and marketing. Why are we only tracking a month-to-month basis? 77% of sales marketings are shared within a month. So we really, really need to understand that, especially within B2B sales, your sales cycle is 6 months plus. It doesn't mean that you need to monitor on a monthly basis. It means you need to take the last 3 months, the last 6 months, the last 12 months, and LinkedIn Analytics even allows you to do that. What has our page been doing? What has the interaction been doing? Unfortunately, you can't monitor that from your personal LinkedIn, but from a company page, you can do that. Which channels do you use to share business-related content? Now, take a look at the left-hand side. It's LinkedIn, email, Twitter, and it goes down and it goes down and it goes down. Business-related content, most people are sharing on LinkedIn. So why don't you have a decent presence on LinkedIn? The following types of information is video content, webinars, research, blogs, and those are the types of content that is actually making a difference. I mean, Alistair is one of those that really puts out a lot of video content regularly because people need to hear how he sounds, how he's presenting in order to sell his service within the business space. So you need to think about what are you selling and how are you then putting it into the next space. Global headlines. Now, I always love these kinds of statistics. So you've got 7.8 billion people around the world, and these are January 2021 stats that come from Hootsuite. So you're welcome to do your research. All of this information is research that I've done. I keep up to date with what's happening in the world so that I know what we're doing with our clients is actually making a difference. And we've got 5.2 billion mobile phones. 4 billion of those, 4.6 billion are on the internet and 4.2 on social media. Are you actively utilizing your digital marketing presence? This one always makes me laugh. We've got 59 million people in South Africa with 100 million mobiles, which means we've got about 2 mobiles per person. I don't have double, I've only got 1, but they are accounting for that. But you've got 25 million active social media people within South Africa. You can't even tell me you have 1% of that as your clients. You have an opportunity to build your brand, as Knox was putting, as all of us have been saying alongside with all of this information. Make sure that your personal branding and your business branding is linked together because you could reach a lot more people. Daily time spent on the internet. So in South Africa, we spend 10, and this is January 21 stats, 10 hours on the internet. Now that includes YouTube and Netflix and all of these wonderful things as it's now put down, but 3.5 hours on social media. But the international, and this is now April stats because they don't have South African stats yet pushed out, but April stats for the world, we are benchmarking an hour more time spent on social media. So how are we utilizing that to get positive and creative content, as everyone has discussed about, to the people that we need to speak to? Now, it's important to make sure that you are reaching those people. So how are the clients actually finding you? finding information at 63%. Why are they using the internet? 63% of people are looking because they're looking for information. They're wanting to stay in contact and keeping up to date with news. They're researching. They're finding new ideas for inspiration. So get yourself out there in different ways to make sure that you are connecting with the people and connecting with them in the right way. Primary channels for brand research. So in other words, when someone is looking at what you do and how you do it within your company, search engines, so what Natalie's been speaking about in terms of making sure that your Google and your website and everything is up to date and up to scratch, that Google doesn't bounce you. Social networks, products and brand websites, consumer reviews, and pricing comparisons on websites. So if you're doing pricing comparisons against your different plans that you may have, that's also important because that people are looking at it. So the stats of the State of Sales LinkedIn, that has only just been released earlier this month. This is brand new information. This little video will give you highlights, and then we'll talk on each specific highlight. Number one is virtual selling is good for sellers and even better for buyers. Now, the State of Sales LinkedIn report is available. If you just search the State of Sales LinkedIn report 2021, you'll see at the bottom right-hand corner. What you need to do is I've taken out little pieces of, I think it's like a 56-page document telling us how the trends of 2021 has actually changed the way we're doing business. Now, we all know that the pandemic around the world has put us into a situation where we've all gone virtual. But now, what Alistair was talking about, how do you put that empathy? And I mean, a lot of the speakers have talked about how do we put that empathy into our selling process? So that was Sue and Alistair talking about that. So now make sure that you are connecting even more with your buyers. 90% of buyers have attended industry events, but 3 in 5 buyers say they won't return to their events in person until late 2021. 70% of buyers want to continue working from home or longer in the time in the future. So, and 50% of buyers are working remotely and has made the process, because with working remotely, has made the process easier. I know personally, for not going physically to meetings, I'm saving time. So I'm actually be able to be more productive in what I'm doing. Going to work and back takes that time. Although now there's a whole other issue with mental wellness and all of that that's also being looked at, because now we're not taking that time out. Some people don't necessarily do well on the roads, road rage and whatever, but I actually used to just turn up the music and actually just go crazy when I'm sitting in that traffic. But people are not necessarily going to go back to the normal working environment. So you need to get where the people are. And trend number 2 is sales organizations and managers must adjust to a remote working world now, not later. You don't have a choice anymore. It's not about making sure that you're adjusting and we'll look at it in the future. People are saying now already, if we don't have a remote option, or at least a few days at home working remotely and then a couple of days in the office, people are actually just moving jobs because of that. One of the slides actually talked to that. Measuring the sales process, adding value, and instituting new sales hiring practices. These are the changes that are really presented at the top 3 challenges within organizations. 86% of sales managers agree that the ability to cope with the change is more important than it was 5 years ago. But sales managers said that 67% of them managing a remote team is more challenging than anticipated. And this is where Sue and business processes and everything comes into place. It's making sure that the manager is more comfortable in terms of making sure that the sales team is functioning and working correctly and that the proper sales processes are in place. Trend number 3 is sales organizations are preventing sellers from putting the buyers first. Now, Suits touched on this. 65% of sellers say they always put the buyers first. No, they don't. 23% of the buyers only agree, which means 77, had to use my brain there, 77% of people, the buyers are disagreeing that the salespeople are not putting the buyer first. You really need to do it and have a look at that information on LinkedIn States of Sales and get back to people that can actually coach your teams, because the lack of the skill, the right skill set, emphasis on short-term sales is actually, from a sales management perspective, it's that ROI, especially when business to business, you've got a month, and that month is not going to, why haven't you closed those deals in this month? It's actually looking at the whole sales process as a whole. What is the general terms? Limited budgets, limited budgets for actually sales as well as marketing, limited committed to training. So in other words, they're not actually utilizing the budgets for coaching and training, adequate coaching and organizational culture. So the culture within an organization is very important. Trend number 4 is these 6 sales behaviors are killing your deals. Delivering misleading information. So this talks about the trust factor. Not understanding your own company that you are selling their products, needs, and services. So in other words, this is as a buyer, that you as a salesperson is not understanding and being empathetic to what the seller and who the buyer is on the other side. There's a mismatch. Understanding that their own products and services. How many salespeople go, actually, I don't know, I'll get back to you. So let's not do that. Let's make sure we understand our products and sales and have enough time for training around that to be able to answer most of the questions. And if we can't answer, we say, I really need to get back to you about that one. That's the first time I've actually heard that question. I'll get back to you. Not understanding their company's products and services. So similar to point number 3, is affiliated with a brand that they don't trust. So brand trust and affiliating. So here in South Africa, we have anyone who's affiliated to the proverbial Guptas, for instance. No one wants to do business with those people because they're in a bad light. Make sure that your business is associated with businesses that help uplift you as a business and people that uplift you, not that is going to do damage to your brand. And cold calling and emailing repeats. I have someone who often phones me every 2 weeks. But I'm just checking in. No, just do a check-in. If I don't get back to you, please stop calling me. I'm going to block your number. So top 5 tips. If sales professionals work with a company with a strong brand, if the sales professional offers favorable pricing, if the sales professional is informed about the buyer's company and business needs, if the buyer is favorable, and the impression of the salesperson. So in other words, and the sales professional is referred and recommended by the buyer from someone within their professional network. This goes about the sales professional. People buy from people. It's not the first time you're going to hear me say this today, but people buy from people, and you need to make sure that you as a person is personable. Trend number 5, sales technology provides the key way to building trust. Now, 77% of sales professionals says their organizational plans to invest into more intelligent tools, and that 89% of buyers describe their sales reps as trusted advisors. Now, you need to make sure that whatever tool you are putting into place from a technology perspective is not spamming them, but is building a relationship. And that's where LinkedIn really, really, really does help. So trend number 6 is sales organizations' data is more critical. And that's where Natalie was touching on from a data perspective. Sellers are lost or delayed in a deal and becomes key stakeholder that has changed jobs. And LinkedIn If someone changes a job, guess what I know? Because now my data is up to date because I'm utilizing LinkedIn and I'm making sure that I'm keeping up to date with what they're doing on LinkedIn, connecting, sharing their content, moving from that space into my CRM. I know 20 years ago, I'm giving away a bit of my age, over 20 years ago, I was sitting and I would spend every December phoning every single company to update the data of our CRM. Now, that takes 3-4 weeks, and you don't necessarily get all the information. You don't get hold of everybody, or you don't get, the receptionist doesn't want to give you the information, whatever that is. But you don't always get the CRM updated, whereas LinkedIn is constantly updated. This is where trend number 7 comes in. Buyers and sellers are ramping up to use their LinkedIn profiles. 74% of sellers say they are committed to expanding their LinkedIn network within 2021. 82% of the buyers are more likely to consider a brand if their salesperson has an informative LinkedIn profile. Having a complete LinkedIn profile could increase your chances of meeting or exceeding your sales targets by more than 2 times, and it can increase your in-mail acceptance rates by as much as 87%. I'm going to share a video that is from a worldwide renowned sales speaker, and this is going to give you some perspective on sales and marketing.
So some people bought pandemic puppies. I decided to buy a pandemic Porsche. I'm in Park City, and there's 2 Porsche dealerships in town. There's one that's 45 minutes away, the other's 2 hours away. So I do what everybody does. I start out and I get on the website and I look at the different cars. I call the guy 45 minutes away. I said, hey, can you send me some information on these 3 cars that are in your lot? He says, oh, you got to come down and test drive it. I said, I'm not coming down. We're in the middle of a pandemic. Can you just send me the information? He's giving me all this crap and says I got to come in, so I don't. So then I call the second dealership. I get this guy, Sean. I said, hey, Sean, can you send me some information on these 3 cars? Well, he not only sends me all the information, then he says, why don't we get on a Zoom call and, we can design the exact car and color you want in case we don't have that in the shop. I thought, okay, because I was looking for white with beige interior, very unusual. So we go online and we're doing it together on a Zoom call, right? I put together all the options I want and everything, and he says, ooh, that's a tough combo, but I'm on it. 2 days later, he connects with me on LinkedIn, starts sharing my videos. So all of these multi-channels of communication, right? And then I kind of go dark because I'm not that intent on buying a car. I kid you not. A few days later, I get a video text to my phone of the exact car coming off the trailer, the car trailer, wrapped up like a present. And he starts videotaping it, and he's like, oh, look at this, look at that. And he's like, if you want to come in today, we're serving chili. Down there, bought the car. But here's the lesson. Too many salespeople think about the sales process instead of the buying process. And today, customers don't buy linearly. It's not like the old days. We got to meet them where they are and use as many channels of communication as we can. That's what Sean did. I got this beautiful new car and I drove it through the lot. The guy that screwed up.
It's a funny little story, but it talks about the salesperson actually having the tools right now to be able to deliver a fantastic sales process, even though buying a car is something very physical, going to the park lot and wanting to test drive the car and everything else. Now, the salesperson went onto a Zoom call, created an experience from a buying perspective rather than the sales process perspective. And this is why sales and marketing really need to get their teams aligned. 50% of companies with both teams aligned meet their revenue goals, and 19% of them exceed them. It's time to start meeting and teaming up with your sales and marketing teams. Shouldn't be siloed. So what are the other things that you need to realize is which types of content assets are you willing to register for? Now, most of you, oh yes, all of you today, there was 363 registrations for this webinar. They were willing to give their information about themselves for a webinar. This is something that you need to elaborate and utilize more, but also utilize research reports, white papers, ebooks, because they will download that information and give you their information in return so that you get permission. The that Zia spoke about in terms of the Poppy Act, you need to get permission to be able to contact them. And this is one way of making sure that you're getting their permission to within that specific, and you mentioned how that you're going to, obviously within the Poppy Act, how you're going to be contacting them and what for, but making sure that that information is there. Now, if you look on the other side, when researching B2B, they typically reviews different types of formats, white papers, webinars, case studies, infographics, and it gives you the amount of percentage time that they will spend on it. So videos, they will spend 44%, infographics, they'll spend 58%. But from a time perspective, webinars, people are prepared to spend between 30 and 60 minutes on it. So make sure that the webinar, the content is powerful, impactful, and short and sharp and punchy. 95% of buyers have a vendor who have provided them with ample content and navigate through each stage of the buying process. 68% of customers feel more positive about a brand after consuming from it. 82% of buyers viewed at least 5 pieces of content. So don't think that if you put out one piece of content, oh, but I put out a PR article and Natalie helped me, and why haven't I got 1 million sales? That's because one article is not going to get you the world of sales. It's about consistency. Companies and brands that develop sales enablement strategies typically win 13% higher contract value. Sales and teams so this is a client's example, sales teams that have started utilizing content from our library and started sharing with their network on LinkedIn saw an increase of their reach and impressions growth from 1,600 views per month to more than 45,000 views because they utilized the sales and marketing teams to elevate the content. So it's time for your marketing and your sales teams to stop working in silos. I can't say this enough. I've been saying this for years. Sales and marketing need to work together because sales know your market, and marketing needs to know what the market is and what they're talking about so that they can also add value into the market. Social sales is personal and people buy from people. So LinkedIn training is going to be happening. We've got minimal time, so I'm putting it out there quickly for you. For the first 20 people, we'll get 300 Rand off by utilizing the Brand 101 purchase code. I'll put the link in the comments shortly. You can purchase your tickets from Quicket. We have a live training session. So it's a live training session. You can ask your questions, etc. It's a 3-hour training session, and I've put it in the afternoon to allow for an international audience. This is minimal, but LinkedIn is your key factor in order to make sure that you are moving on.